Using the latest data, I've tracked where home prices throughout the U.S. are doomed. Check this out. So if we look at the top metros in the U.S., one of the things that I'm tracking, and remember, I don't track just metros, I'm tracking zip codes, counties, and metros. And I'm looking for the areas where active inventory of homes for sale has exploded, where pending sales are falling, where demand is falling, where supply is growing, and where sellers are cutting prices the most. So, for instance, if I look at an area like Memphis, Tennessee, and I look at active inventory of homes for sale, look at this. In July, and this is the latest data from Realtor.com, if I compare the active inventory in Memphis, Tennessee to 2019 levels, they have 66% more homes for sale versus 2019. And so then if I look at pending sales, how are the pending listings going? Look at this, pending listings falling and tanking, completely tanking. They had nearly 3,175 homes go into contract in July of 2021, and now they only had 1,805 homes go into contract. But then look at this price reduction share. Look at this, folks. There are 24% of all sellers in Memphis cutting their price, 24%. I've got a few more here for you. Check this out. Let's look at Denver, Colorado. We're going to go through the same exercise here in Denver. Let's look at inventory, and you're going to see what I mean. Inventory of homes for sale versus 2019 is up 44%. So they have an explosion of supply. And then if I look at pending sales, I'll show you how that's doing. Look at the pending listing count. 3,784 pending sales. I mean, I go back into 2020, there were 8,000 pending sales in July. So demand has fallen off a cliff and supply has exploded. Let's look at price reductions. How are those doing? 31% of all sellers are cutting their price in Denver. The prices there are doomed, I think. They are doomed. Now, one more area to show you. Let's look at Tucson. Nope. Tampa. Sorry. Gonna look at Tampa, Florida. And let's look at inventory. You're going to see what's going on there. 32% more homes for sale than 2019. So inventory has continued to grow overall in Tampa. And let's look at pending sales. Are those up? What's going on with demand? Down. Look at this, 6,100 pending sales for July. And look at this. Back in 2020, they had over 10,000 pending listings. So demand is falling off a cliff. Supply is up. And let's look at the price reduction share. Wow. Price reduction, 25% of all sellers cutting their price in Tampa. So those housing markets are a great example of where I'm seeing definite doom. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's no way to really sugarcoat it at the end of the day. You've got these markets that are growing in inventory, supply is down, supply is up, demand is down, and the price reductions are through the roof. So that's what we're looking at today, because really, when you get down to it, it's what's happening in your market. Is your market safe? So we're going to go down to a zip code level, looking at the same factors I just looked at in these metros. And wherever you are in the U.S., drop your zip code below, and I'm going to analyze it live. And this is a chance for you to learn about the housing market. My name is Jason Ferrier. I am the housing nerd. I'm a realtor and investor in Central Ohio. I'm not a financial advisor, though. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an attorney. I'm just a normal, average, everyday Ohioan that happens to like the housing market, and it's kind of my hobby. So I look at this information every day, and we do this every other week or so, get together and talk about the housing market. So that's what's happening. excited to be here. It's a beautiful day in Ohio, out on the porch here. I've got my plants, I got my sign, I've got you, so let's get going. And I get requests all the time for zip codes. So I have some in my back pocket if you all don't have any, but usually load me up pretty good. Let's look at this zip code here. What's up, man? I'm going to call you man. 45342. Now, I'm sure you know I have an All Ohio channel. I'm sure you know that. Maybe you don't. But my All Ohio channel is something that you should definitely check out. I do those live streams every Friday, and that's Ohio Housing Nerd. So let's look at your zip code, though, 45342. Let's see what's happening in your zip code. Now, a lot of housing analysts out there will look at 80 markets, the top markets. They'll pull it kind of from an article, and they're like, hey, look what's happening in the housing market. But that's kind of weak, right? You got to look at the zip code level. So if you don't look at the zip code level, at least that's the best I can get from these aggregators. You're really not looking at what you need to. So we're looking at inventory. This is in, and do me a favor, put the city in wherever you are. That would help me if you put the city in as well, so I don't have to look it up, because I'm always curious where these zip codes are. 45342. Miamisburg, huh? Within Montgomery County, Ohio. So that's what we're looking at, is Miamisburg. Let's do it. And you get an idea where the zip code is in Ohio, but in southeastern Ohio. All right. First thing we're looking at is inventory. This is interesting. You actually have more homes for sale right now than you did in 2019. We don't see that often in Ohio. We're not seeing that in many spots of the Buckeye State, but you have that. So let's look at active inventory count. You've got 64. That's a clear increase from what you had last year. Look, last year you had 51. This year you've got 64. More homes on the market. That's a good thing. Go back to July of 2016. Look at this, 125 homes on the market back in 2016. And we were coming out of the great financial crisis, right? So a lot more homes on the market. And folks, we need inventory to change the housing market, for better or worse, depending on who you are. But you definitely have more supply, man, because that's who you are, man, right? All right. Your screen name, right? Let's look at median days on market next. I am going to look at that. You know what? No, I'm going to go to pending sales. We'll stick with the program. So how's the demand there? 60 homes went into contract last month. Last year, it was 52. So you have more demand, you have more supply, more transactions. One of the things I'm noticing is that as we see more and more supply hit the market, buyers are actually coming out and going, hey, time to buy. I got some opportunities maybe. But demand by no means is roaring. Don't get me wrong. It's not roaring in most spots. But again, same thing as we looked at with inventory, man. If you go back into like 2016, 2017, 2018, you can see you had 92 homes, 87 homes, 80 homes going to contract. So the market is definitely a little slower, but you also have less supply. So less things to choose from. But anyway, that's the demand side. We already did the supply side. We are going to look at prices, though, after we look at price cuts. How many homes are actually getting a price reduction where you are? Look at this, 30%. Now, Ohio is running about 18% of all houses for the state have a price cut. Nationally, it's around that number too. So to be at 27% in Miamisburg means you have more sellers than the state average cutting prices. More supply, more price reductions. Good news if you're a buyer. Good news, right? So that's an area where our price is doomed? Maybe not. But they probably won't skyrocket like they were a few years ago, right? In fact, let's end by looking at your pricing. 4.3% up year over year. Now, that's through June, not July. The Zillow numbers are not in yet for July, but using the end of June, your home prices were up 4.3% versus last year. Basically means homes are about 4% more expensive than they were this time last year. That's really what that means. Now let's look at the year-over-year price. Oh, not year-over-year price. We already did that. Let's look at the single-family value. How much are homes? $283,519. That's the typical house. That's how much it costs in your market. Many people watching this from other areas of the country are thinking, what? How in the world are homes only $280,000? Well, in Ohio, that's how much homes are. Homes are that much. And after I'm done analyzing your area, if you could do me a favor and just give me a thumbs up, helps the algorithm, obviously, and gets more people involved in the live stream. All right, so $283,000 in Miamisburg, Ohio. Are prices crashing? No. Are they doomed? Probably not. Not at this level, what I'm seeing for the inventory. It's not like Tampa or what we saw in Memphis earlier or Denver. But make no mistake, you're not seeing the 10% growth that you did. I mean, if I go back to, just to show you what I mean, look at this. If I go back into like 2022, prices were growing 13%. 13%. That's not sustainable. That is not sustainable. So that growth has slowed. Now it's kind of back to like normal levels. 4% growth. That's normal. All right. So that's Miamisburg. We did that one. Now, what's next? And you could also share this video maybe with somebody you know that needs to see this information, somebody that, is curious what's happening in their housing market. So that could help get more people involved too. All right. No crash, YouTube. Never is, right? Sometimes there is. Sometimes there's a crash. Just depends. But in a lot of spots, not a crash yet. What's up, Christine? How are you? Akron, Ohio taxes. Oh my God. Huh. Right. Yeah. And if you want, we could look at also, you just have to tell me if you want to look at it or not. We could actually look at the property taxes, the delinquencies anyway. In fact, actually what I could do, that now you say that, Christine, look, something I forgot to do for Miamisburg. Watch this. I think Resi Club gives me this data. Affordability and taxes. Yeah. So for Miamisburg, your median property tax, by the way, going back to your zip code before in Miamisburg, man, this one, median property tax is $4,000 a year. Now that's as of 2024. They don't have the 2025 in there yet. And if assessments have caught up to your, property tax thing, to your assessment, then your market value, then you could see a big jump from 24 to 26, obviously. But as of 2024, Miamisburg, $4,000 for property taxes. If you drop a zip code in, Christine, I could probably go through it and see what's happening. I'm happy to do that. But let's look at Akron while we're doing it. Since you called out Akron, let's see what's happening. Akron, Ohio. Median annual property tax in Akron is only $3,200, but that's a median as of 2024. It could certainly have gone up, but you can see every year it's gone up basically, right? Pretty much. Gone up every single year. A couple years, in 2022, it was $2,900. Now it's $3,300 for the same property, basically. Let's look at what's happening with Akron's data. Are we seeing more inventory? What's happening there? Well, they're down 36% versus 2019 in inventory. So as opposed to like a Memphis or a Denver or a Tampa Bay, look at the difference. Look at the difference. Like they have way more inventory than they had in 2019. Akron, far less inventory. And that's like one of the things that a lot of people fail to understand. I'm not saying you, Christine. A lot of people fail to understand that, man, the housing market's doomed because Melody Wright told me it was doomed. It's like, well, you have to look locally and find out what's happening, right? You can't just say that it's all doomed. But there are places where it's doomed, no doubt, where prices are like, oh man, that's horrible. Let's look at pending listings in Akron. Yeah, look at this in Akron, pending listings down. We have far less supply, so that would make sense. But yeah, your new list or your pending sales, your demand of homes is not where it was in 2022, because that was at 1,400 for the month of July. You're down to 1,000. So you've lost definitely a supply and demand. Now let's look at the price reduction share. 16%. Miamisburg we looked at was a lot higher. What was that? 27%? And now Akron, 16%. But this is not an Ohio show. This is a national show. So wherever you are in the nation, drop your zip code and let's look at it. Although Ohio seems to dominate because I have a lot of Ohio followers. It doesn't matter where you are in the nation, any zip code at all. I want to look at it. You just drop it and let's look. So let's look at prices in Akron. How are those doing? 4.4% up. They're still going up in Akron. Prices are, I'm sure you know that. And let's look at typical single family value, $247,000, less than Miamisburg, but prices are at all-time highs there in Akron. So that's what's happening in Akron, Ohio. Thanks, Christine. I appreciate that. Let me look at the, hey, look at this guy. What's up all night? Good to see you, man. Where do you reside? Why don't you put your zip code in here? Let's take a look at your market. Or where are you investing? You're an investor, right? Look at this guy here. What's up, Cody? I'm thinking I should sell my $600,000 house near Sacramento and move to a lower cost state and pay cash for a new house around $300K. Well, where in Sacramento are you? Drop your zip code and let's look at it. Drop your zip code and let's look at it. Oh, here's all-nighters. All right, all-night. 91942. Let's look at all-nighters. Zip code. Oh, you're in Cali, huh? For some reason, I thought you were like in Indiana or something. I don't know why. Well, your property taxes, look at this. This is a great experiment. I mean, you've got all-nighters, median property tax at 91942 in Cali at $5,000 a year. I would have to think home prices there are a lot higher than they are in Ohio, but property taxes aren't that bad. Where is that 91942? Let me look. I want to know what city that's in. Oh, La Mesa. Oh, you're in San Diego County, man. I didn't know that. All right. I used to live in Southern California, so I'm very familiar with La Mesa. All right. That was property tax for all night. Let's look at your inventory. Maybe you already know this. Your inventory is up 23% versus 2019. So you got more houses on the market than you did before, the vid. And active inventory count right now, 57. Last year, 49. You have gained homes on the market. I mean, in 2023, you had 21 homes. Not very good, right? So you've gained inventory. And you're near like historical levels. Like if you go back into 2016, 2017, 2018, you had about that number of homes. 57. All right, let's go to pending sales. What's happening with pending sales? Wow, 32. Let me compress this. They probably didn't have data in that zip code before this time. So yeah, let me compress that. All right, 32 pending sales. Last year, 33. So your demand is about where it has been for the last 4 or 5 years. No real change in demand there. Not going down, but not going up by any means. So if supply keeps going up, demand's down, you'd have to think prices are coming down at some point. Price reduction, and we'll get to your price at the end. 26% of all sellers cutting their price in La Mesa, 91942. Fair bit, over a quarter of people cutting their price. If you go back again in time, you can see that like in 2021, you only had 10% of people cutting their price. In 2020, you only had 7% cutting their price. There's always price cuts, right? But if you think about it, you've quadrupled the number of people that are cutting their price, or the percentage anyway, not the number, but the percentage, because there's more inventory, more competition, obviously. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But yeah, that's what's happening with price reductions. Now let's go to prices. How are those? Down. Look at this. We're flat. Down 0.7%. Nothing impressive, but they're not going up. And they've been down for months. They've been down for months. Basically, since April of last year, you've had negative price growth. Negative nominal growth, by the way, not even real growth, nominal growth. So it's, it's not obviously not keeping up with inflation. It's definitely lower than inflation is. Look at $880,000, $881,000, but the median property tax payment's $5,500. I think, and you can comment down below all nighter, but I think it's because you have that Proposition 13, right, with property tax, where you pay based on the value when you buy the house, not what the current assessed value is. I think that's the case because look at that, $880,000. And if I go down to property taxes, you're at $5,000. I mean, we just looked at a place in Akron, Ohio that was $3,500 and homes were only, what, 230 grand. Wow. That's surprising. I didn't know it was that much of a disparity. Yeah, property taxes in Ohio are no joke, obviously. Interesting market to look at. Thanks, All Nighter. That was cool. That was cool. I need to go talk to my old boss about buying his portfolio of 3 houses in this zip. 91942. We already did that. Oh, is that not where you live? I don't know. Yeah, it's Proposition 13, right? Yeah. I mean, as an investor, I can tell you property taxes crush me on every deal. Nearly every deal I look at. It's like the hanging chad. Look at the deal, cash flows, I understand the rehab on the home. I understand how much it's going to cost. The debt rate's really not a factor normally because I use seller financing. And then I look at property taxes and I'm like, well, instead of offering you, $250,000 for that duplex, I can only offer you $150,000 because of property taxes. I mean, there's no recovery. There's nothing you can do about those. So there's no joke, and they just keep going up. All right, let's look at another zip. I did Cody's. Oops, this one. Oh, love it here. The topography, not the politics. Right. I hear you. Yeah, California, the weather there is like stupid nice. All right, 77055, mix of new build, older homes in Houston. Yeah, I'd definitely like to look at this one, 77055. By the way, what I'm looking at here, I'm using Resi Club Analytics, which is not free, but I was able to slide in when he first started in this data set, and I pay still a fee for it, but now I think he's charging like $4,500 a year for this thing. So you get it for free with the Housing Nerd. Look at property taxes here in Houston. Yeah, Houston property taxes are high. Median property tax payment, $9,547. That's in 2024. And they've gone up every year. Look at that. All right, now let's look at your inventory and see what's going on. I bet you have a lot, but that's just my guess. You said it's a mix of old and new build. This is mostly existing homes. There are new homes in here mixed in, with because of the MLS, but most of this data is existing homes, most of it. All right. Active inventory. Wow, you actually have, this is nuts. You have fewer homes than you did in 2019. You have fewer homes. I don't see that very often in Texas. Look at this, 247 houses right now. Last year, 291. I go back before COVID, 340. This is why a zip code analysis like I do is far superior to a metro analysis or a map or using like an article from Redfin. I used to do that, but you can't go down to a zip code level. But going down to a zip code level, you can see the fact that Houston and Texas overall has a lot more inventory than 2019. But in this zip code, 77055, fewer homes on the market than 2019. It happens. Interesting. All right. Now, let's go back and let's look at, let's do pending listing count. What's happening with pending listings? 67, last year 60. So you've got a little more demand than last year, but it's kind of fallen over the last few years, right? I mean, you were at 120 during the vid, then you came down to 83, then you kept falling all the way down to 57 or 67 in July of this year, just last month. So your demand is falling. Maybe that's why inventory is increasing. Price reductions, only 14%. So now it's really going to be interesting to see what happens with prices. What happens with prices now? Are they going to be up, down? Survey says flat, 1% up year over year for home prices. Now that's the typical home in that market. It's not the most expensive home. It's not the cheapest home. They just take the middle band of homes and say that's how much homes are going up. Now let's look at the actual price of a single family house. It is down from the all-time high, $668,000. So your property tax is at $9,000. Just look at that. I mean, I can't look at it, but you can think about it. The last one I did in California with all-nighter hider was like $900,000 for his house, for the houses there. And then taxes were $5,000. In Houston, now you're looking, prices are $700,000 or $668,000, whatever. And the property taxes were $9,000. I would think at a house like this in Ohio, a $668,000 house in a lot of markets would be $11,000, $12,000 a year in taxes. More than Houston, probably. But your typical house, $668,000 there in Houston, it hasn't gone, I mean, it's not crashing, but you're not at an all-time high, not at an all-time high anymore. That was back in like 2026 or so. Interesting market. Thanks for suggesting this one. NVS. STR, NVS, NVTR. I don't know how you say that. That's what I see. Looks like your inventory isn't necessarily exploding, but it is going up. But sellers are not cutting prices like they are in a lot of other areas. You actually have fewer homes than 2019, which is really surprising. Don't really see that much in Texas, especially Houston. All right, got this one right here. JQ, what's up? 75043. Let's do that one. Sounds like Houston or Texas somewhere. Let's look at where that is. 75. Plano, Texas, right? That's where we are. Plano, Texas. No, that's not right. Garland, Texas, my bad. Within Dallas, Fort Worth metro area. Yeah, look at this difference. Look at inventory there in Plano, up 52%. What? That's some inventory growth. That is growth of inventory. Active inventory count, 180 right now. Although last year, look at this, last year you had 235 homes on the market. So you've had a decrease in inventory versus last year. Although if you go back in time, before the vid, look at this, 118 homes on the market. In July of 2019, now 180. So you've definitely grown since before COVID, but you're not growing anymore with inventory. It looks like probably people took their houses off the market or somebody bought them. 235 last year, now 180 houses on the market. Again, you want more supply. to lower prices. If you're hoping for a lower prices, if you're hoping for a housing market crash, if you're hoping for all the markets to be doomed, then you got to have more supply. You got to. It's boring, but that's the way it is. But that's the way it is. Just like bicycles, right? During the vid, right? You couldn't find a bicycle. People were paying anything for bikes. Well, a bicycle, a Huffy bike, I'll pay $500 because I can't find a bicycle. Everybody had to have a bicycle during COVID. Same thing. Same with, cars, right? You get the point. Let's look at pending listings. How's demand doing? 75 last month in July. 78 the year before that. So about the same amount of demand, but you did lose some supply. You did. So demand hasn't fallen off a cliff by any means. Let me look at pending, let me look at median days on market and see what that's doing. We'll look at median days on market. I didn't look at this in the other zips. Maybe I should have. 57 days. Last year, 51 days. It means homes are taking about 57 days to go into contract. In Garland, Texas. It's Garland, right? It's a Plano. Keep remember. Garland, Texas. Yeah. In Dallas. But look where days on market traveled. Look at it in 2021. 22 days. Only took 22 days to put a house in contract in 2021. Now, 57 days. So homes are sitting. But yet inventory fell, right? You got to think it's because of delistings. You got to, right? That'd probably be why. Let's look at price reductions. 23% of homeowners, or home sellers rather, home sellers cutting prices. Look, last year was 30%. Look at the year before that, 37%. Wow. So, in 2024, inventory in your area popped. It spiked. More people put their houses on the market. Sellers were like, man, I got all this competition, I got to cut. So over a third of sellers were cutting their prices. That was in 2024, though. Now it's 23%. Far fewer sellers. Yeah, far fewer sellers are cutting their price. And there's always price cuts. Let's look at your home prices. How are they doing? Look at this, home prices. Wow. They haven't been growing. They've been falling now for, since what? The end of 2024. I mean, and look at the change. You really have to appreciate this. Like, look at how the price growth has changed in the last 5 years. I mean, when COVID hit, the growth just exploded in Garland, Texas. I mean, in June of 2021, prices were growing at 16%. And then the following year, in 2022, prices were growing 24%. And then the bottom fell out, and price growth just ended and went negative and pretty much hasn't recovered. In fact, if I look at since 22, prices are down 10% for the typical house in Garland, Texas. $297,000 is your typical home value. It peaked around $326,000. Is that a crash? Is this market doomed? I don't know that it's doomed. I'm not seeing a massive explosion of inventory continue because you're actually losing inventory now. But if you see that trend reverse and you see more and more homes hit the market, that's what to watch. Quite frankly, that's what you should watch in any market. You should probably see further price declines. Do I have this data? Yeah. Look at this. Look at this info. Let me see if I can move my little thing here. Let me show you this. This is important. Let's look at what happened during the Great Financial Crisis with home prices. Most people don't really understand what happened during the GFC. So not every area during the Great Financial Crisis had a massive price crash. Not every area did. In fact, areas like Texas didn't do that bad. Areas like Ohio didn't do that bad. So people talking about a massive nationwide price crash of 38% or 50%, they need to go back and look at their history. Look at this. In Texas, in 2005, the typical house was, and this is in Garland, Texas, 121 grand. It fell to a low of 108 grand. So it fell basically $11,000, 10%. And you're down right now since 22 compared to 26, you're down about 9%. So one could think, all right, well, maybe you've had your decline already. I don't know. But back in the great financial crisis, your area didn't do that bad because it ended around 2012, right? And at 108 grand, and then prices started going up from there. I mean, you can just see how they started climbing, right? I mean, look at them grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. Now you're not at an all-time high anymore, and you're declining, but you're down about 9-10% since 22. So it's just some history on the great financial crisis. The point is, even if we have a massive downturn in the housing market, not every area is going to fall the same, some more, some less. Let's look at taxes and we'll go to the next zip code. What's up with taxes? How are you doing there? Your taxes, they said, actually went down from 2023 to 2024. You're down, what, $100, $150, something like that. $4,228 for Garland, Texas. And that's on a $280,000 home. And in California, the taxes were $5,000 on nearly $1 million home. Well, $900,000 home. Believe that, right? Unreal how these things are different, how they function like that. All right, that was 75043. Thanks for that. If you have a zip code you want me to analyze, drop it below. I'm happy to do it. Share this video while we're in the live stream. Get somebody else in here to help them look at their housing market. Hey, you're welcome, all-nighter. I appreciate you jumping on. You're all over the place. Oh, you live in 91942, investing Gary, Indiana. I thought so. So you're following what Millennial Mike does, right? Because he's in Seattle, investing in Gary, Indiana. Want to now sell or finance, invest in La Mesa. Cool, man. I wish you luck, dude. That's great. That's great. Shout out to Sean from Resi Club. I don't know who Sean is. But shout out to Sean. You mean Lance? What's up? Oh, I already did this one, didn't I? I did this one at the beginning, I think. Yeah, I did that one at the beginning for you. Connecticut. Litchfield County, Connecticut. Yeah, let's look at Connecticut. Connecticut is a brutal market. At least it has been so far. I don't know if I have Litchfield. We need Litch, Litch. Yeah, I need a zip code. So give me a zip code, Mike. Villette. All right, I need a zip code. Otherwise, I'm going to have to look at, I could look at the county. That should come up. I don't know why that didn't. Hang on a second. Hang on. What's up with this? Go to Connecticut. Oops. I'm not seeing that county. I don't know why. I'm not seeing that one. You said county, right? Hmm. Yeah, I need a zip code. All right. Well, I'll come back to you. All nighter, what's up? Oh, more supply and forced sellers needed for a crash, down 20% year over year. Yeah, you got to have, that's a great point. I didn't bring that up. You got to have forced selling. Great point. You got to have it to have any type of housing crash. Right now, I got news for you. If you're waiting for some kind of crash and you're like, we need to reset the housing market, you have to have supply and forced selling. You got to have people that have to sell their home, not want to sell their home. And so when supply is declining, when right now it's flat year over year nationally, when supply is declining or flat, it means there's not a lot of sellers that need to sell. There are sellers that want to sell. And if you just want to sell, you'll take it off the market if you don't get the price you want because you don't need to sell. The trick is you need sellers that need to sell. And those are the deals. That's where price destruction happens, right? Bring on the discounts. What's up, Momo? I'm seeing sellers be delusional and stubborn still in Oklahoma City and Dallas-Fort Worth for 2 to 4 unit properties. That's my jam too. Straight up delusional sellers. I mean, I'm seeing that too, Momo. Like I'm seeing a lot of areas because I'm focused on 2 and 4 unit buildings, not in Connecticut, or I'm sorry, not in Oklahoma or Dallas, but in Ohio. And you can tell when they don't need to sell because the price doesn't change. I understand what you're saying, being delusional. I don't think they're delusional. I just think they're, well, maybe they are delusional in the fact that they're like, I'm going to get this price and they can't get it. So they just leave the house on the market. And you're like, man, here's an offer. And they're like, no way. And they don't even look at it, right? Happens all the time. What about Colorado Springs? Oh, you know what? Hang on one second. What's up, Lisa? I want to say hi to you. Lisa is in Kingman, Arizona. So if you need a realtor in Kingman, hit up Lisa, AZ Home Seller. But let's look at this one. Colorado Springs would be a great one. 80917. 80917. What's up? 80917. Colorado Springs inventory. What? You must not have any inventory because that doesn't make any sense. No, you have inventory. This is unreal. Look at this. 224% increase in the number of homes versus 2019. 224%. That's like, I don't see that happen very often. I mean, you can't, I mean, it's easy to see where inventory has gone. I'll crunch this chart in so you can really see it. Look at that. I mean, in 2000 and, let's go back to 2019. In July of 2019, you had 37 houses on the market. And now, 120. That's a big increase. That's a big increase. Wow, I'm really curious to see what happens with these other stats. Median days on market. How long is it taking to sell a home? 44 days. Last year was 50, but this is a lot slower of a market than you had, you know, look at 2019, it was 14 days. So homes are sitting a lot longer. To Momo's point earlier, maybe they're delusional sellers. They could be delusional. Pending listing count. How about demand? 33 homes went into contract last month. Last year, last July, it was 32 homes. So about the same amount of demand. The demand has kind of stayed the same. All going back all the way into 2017, 2018, you're about the same amount of, buyers in the market. But your inventory, your sellers, that's increased a lot. Price reduction share, 31%. That's big. That's high. The US, I think, is like 18 approximately. So you're being 31% of, that's a third of every seller basically cutting their price. That's big. That's one of the bigger numbers I see, especially the inventory growth. So I'm really curious what's happening with home prices. Yeah, no surprise. They haven't been up. Look at this. The last time they were up was in 2023. This market, I could say this market is doomed. I could say prices here are doomed. I mean, they continue to fall. There doesn't look like that's really being mitigated at all. I mean, the last time you had an increase in home prices was back in February of 2023. I mean, there was a cliff of prices, right? You were at 17% growth year over year. Wow, look at this. All right. In June of 2022, your home prices were growing 17% year over year. The following year, in 2023, prices were falling 6%. So by my dumb Ohio math, that's a swing of 23%. A swing of 23%. You went from positive 17% all the way down to negative 6%. Wow. Yeah, doomed here. And they have been doomed for a while. See, it's not clickbait. I put that on my title, and I did find some doomed markets. 407,000 is the typical home price there. Typical home price, 407,000. You peaked at 444,000 approximately back in 2022. And then you could see that decline we were looking at, right? Where that price just whoop right down, and it's continued to kind of fall. I wonder how much you're down versus 2022. Let me look. 8% since 2022. So when we looked in Dallas, right, Garland, it was a bigger drop, but this one's not small, 8% down. And it looks like it's continuing to fall. I'm curious about condos. Let's look at condos where you are. Oh my gosh. We looked at the value, home value, including condos. We strip out single family houses and look at this. I mean, there's definite destruction here with condo prices. Let's go to condo value, typical condo value, $217,000 in Colorado Springs. Wow. And it peaked at 247. Some destruction there. I don't have inventory count for condos. I wish I did, but I don't. But yeah, make no mistake, your prices are falling. They are falling. Let me look at what about rent? I'm always interested to see when these markets are very extreme, what's going on with rent. Rent hasn't really crashed. Your rent's still $1,385. So rent isn't crashing. Maybe more people are renting versus buying because homes just got too expensive. It's possible. Let's look at taxes. What are taxes like there? What? Median annual property tax in Colorado Springs, $1,344 on a $400,000 house? Wow. Okay. And this is by the Census Bureau. So I don't know. You tell me if that's right, because man, that's low. That's like peanuts. Well, they moved to Colorado Springs and buy a property. That's where you should be looking, all-nighter. Prices are plummeting there. Man, that is crazy. Wow, what a market. Thank you for suggesting this one. I don't know if you're buying or selling. I don't know, Eric, what you're doing, but if you're buying, I'd be making some disrespectful offers. I would just go out, find the houses you like, go see them, find a realtor that's willing to write disrespectful offers, and make an offer that makes sense to you. And then if they say no, track the property, and in 3 months, go back, try again. Are you interested now? You never know. This is a market where I think people probably need to sell. 80917 Colorado Springs. Thanks. That was crazy. I love looking at these. So interesting. Yeah, man, you're getting together in Vegas with Lance and Zuber and everybody. I may pull the trigger here and come out and do that. I don't know. It's as a realtor, I'm having one of the best years I've had in my life. So, and I'm picking up multifamily properties right now, and I got this YouTube thing going on. So I don't know if I can make it, but I'd like to. I'd like to come out there and meet all you guys. I wanted to bring my kid to that teenage thing. So anyway, that's kind of a side conversation. Is it true that there are a bunch of pending foreclosures that are about to settle from COVID protections ending? You're seeing that. Great question. So the pipeline for foreclosures, it's like a hose. This is how you have to look at it, right? You have a hose that's filled with foreclosures, like a garden hose, and you kink the hose, all those foreclosures stack up behind, right? All those foreclosures will stack up and build pressure. That was the COVID relief that we had, that we kept extending. And then when you unleash the gates, right? Unkink the hose. When you unkink the hose, all that distress will flow through the system quickly. What I think you're seeing right now is that buildup flowing through. So I think foreclosures are up nationally like 23%, right? I think you'll continue to see that. We're nearly back at 2019 levels. We're not there yet, but we're getting to that level, basically normal levels. So I think you're going to see this initial rush of foreclosures. We may go over the 2019 level, but then I think you'll just see a steady stream of them. So I don't think it'll be like a systemic contagion fiasco and right now, but you'll definitely see a steady increase in the number of foreclosures and then a stream of them from then on out. So I track foreclosures every day, and I'm not seeing a lot here, but every market's different. So track the foreclosures where you are. Go to your county auditor site or your county treasurer site, and depending on how your state's set up, you could see them there. You could use a program like PropStream, and track them. Go to Zillow, set up a search for just foreclosures in your area, and look at them every day. Write the number down. Are they increasing or decreasing? But we should see more foreclosures. We artificially stopped them for years. Of course, you're going to see an explosion of foreclosures. Of course. Now, on the distress side of things, before foreclosures, you got to miss a mortgage payment or many mortgage payments, right? We're seeing a huge uptick in the delinquency of FHA loans. Melody Wright covers this every time she talks, right? But the trick is knowing that FHA loans only represent about 13% of the total market in mortgages. So if you've got a 12 or 13% delinquency in FHA loans, but you have they only represent 12 or 13 or 14% of the entire market. You see where that leads, right? It's not like it's the normal everyday loan out there. Those are definitely that they have distress, they have late payments, what they call the GSE loans, the conventional loans. But most of the distress right now is all in FHA, VA loans. So I would check out, you should follow a guy on Substack. His name is John Comiskey. He's done a couple videos with me on my channel. He's like the distress foreclosure pipeline king. Follow him. He knows what's going on. Great question. Yeah, great point, all-nighter. Yeah, many will go to short sale. And a short sale is just when you owe more than the house is worth. And so the bank's like, go ahead and sell it, and we'll eat the difference. And then they send you a 1099, by the way. If you're the owner and the seller, and you pay tax, usually income tax, on the difference. I'm not sure most people don't know that, but good point. It takes a long time to foreclose on a property. It's not tomorrow. So I don't think we'll see a big wave. I think it'll be, going to normal levels, which it should. Foreclosures are like a normal part of the everyday housing market. Without them, the housing market is unhealthy. It's already unhealthy, but without foreclosures, it's really unhealthy. I've seen small multifamilies on the market for 6 to 8 months with 0 price drops. Yep, clearly the sellers aren't motivated. They're just waiting to find a sucker, or they'll wait. Exactly. Exactly. Like if you're a landlord and you are cash flowing and you have tenants in place and you've been doing it now for a decade, unless you need the cash, like you need a big infusion of cash, why sell? In fact, Momo, one of the reasons why you're not seeing more of these probably, and tell me what you think, is that capital gain tax will kill you in many situations. You have an old landlord who's been depreciating property for 15 years, and they're like, oh, if I sell, I'm going to owe the IRS like $150,000, or I got to buy something else in a 1031 exchange. So why would I sell? I won't. The capital gain tax penalty is keeping a lot of supply on the sidelines, including single-family houses. Nobody talks about that, but that's a big reason why people aren't selling. Nope, I didn't look at this one. I'm going to. 76001, but good discussion around investing. 76001, let's look at it. I learned so much from you guys. I learned so much about these markets, about what you're up to. Lots of education. All right. Inventory up 33% versus 2019, 33%. You got 96 homes on the market. You had 96 last year. So no growth of supply year over year, but you're coming from the bottoms, the depths, the basement of inventory at 27 houses on the market in 2020. There are only 27 houses in your zip code. Arlington, Texas, 76001. Now 96 homes. A lot more homes. A lot more homes on the market. Let's find out what's happening with days on market. Houses are selling about the same amount of time as they did last year, right? 43 days. Last year, 44 days. But look, again, if I go back to 2021, 22 days. So homes are definitely sitting longer, but it's not extremely longer. I don't know if that's a right term or not, but it's not like it's 100 days or something. Pending listings, though, are falling. 34 pending listings in July. Last year, 29, but then 33 in 2024. You go back again to 2020, look at this, 86 pending sales. Now, you didn't have the supply, or you had supply then, so people could actually buy homes. But you definitely have, you have supply now, 30, but only 34 transactions. So homes are sitting on the market. Price reductions, 32%. Wow. Nearly a third of all sellers cutting their price. That's a lot. That's a lot. That means there's a lot of sellers out there having to cut prices. Let's look at prices. How much are homes? Well, they're up. I'm sorry, down. Up. They're down 0.9%. And they've been down for months and months and months. The last time you had home price growth was March of 2023. Man, your price growth just stopped. It just stopped. What about the typical home value? Where are we at? Typical home value, $354,000. You peaked at about $383,000 back in 2022. And since then, it's been a slow decline, but nonetheless, definitely a decline. So I'm curious how much your prices have fallen since 2022. 8%. All these markets in Texas, a lot of these falling, 8, 9% since 2022. The prices are headed down. Are you doomed? I don't know if you're doomed, but it's not good if you're hoping values go up. If you're a buyer, it's a good thing. It helps you. What about condos there? Oh, I don't have any data for condos there. Okay. But yeah, I mean, you could see this crazy climb right through here of prices where they went. They started at 246 in 2019 and then went to 379 by 2022. So in 3 years, wow, that's crazy. Or 2 years, they went from $246,000 in 2019 to 2022. Yeah, 3 years, 380 grand. So they're correcting now. They are correcting in Arlington. Let's look at your taxes. I imagine they're high. How much are property taxes? $6,000. I mean, property taxes in La Mesa, San Diego County, California were $5,000 on a $900,000 home. But in Arlington, Texas, it's $6,000 on a, what, $380,000 home? Is that right? Right? No, $350,000 home. Wow. Yeah, taxes are killer. They are crushing some people. Some areas, no big deal, right? But a lot of areas, it's a problem. Thanks for that one. Great. Thanks for suggesting it. Yeah, let's look at this one. Ray. What's up, Ray? 37043. Where's that? If you're going to put a zip code in, if you could put this city in, that would help me. Because I just like to know where we're looking. 37043. Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee. All right. All right. 58,000 people live in that zip code, it says. 37043. Inventory up since 2019. And we use 2019, by the way, because that's the last time the housing market was normal. They say, right? 26% growth of inventory versus 2019. Let's look at the count. 530 homes on the market. Look at that increase of inventory, though. Well, first off, before we get to the increase, let's go back in time a little bit. Look at 2019, you had 421 homes. And then everything fell apart with inventory. It fell and fell and fell and fell all the way down to 126 homes. You have to really appreciate that, right? We went from 421 to 126 houses on the market. I mean, that's, dumb, just using rough math. If I was like, oh, you're in a store and you're looking at products and there's 4 of them one day and you go back the next day and there's only 1, what are you going to do? Oh, God, I got to buy this right now. I got to buy this one thing. That's what people did. They're like, there's nothing on the market. I got to buy. And they went nuts. 126 homes. Then reality kicked in and you literally just exploded in 1 year. 126 houses in 2021, all the way up to 326 homes in 2022. So in 1 year, you tripled the inventory. And then it kept going. 381 in 2024, 458 in 2025, 530 this year. You are gaining inventory. So is your housing market, are home prices doomed there? We're going to find out. Days on market is up. I mean, 58 days last year, this year, 64 days. So homes are sitting longer. You have more homes for sale. Those two things spell doom so far. So 2 check boxes for the doom category. Pending listing count, 216 this year. Last year in July, 243. Fewer people buying, more people listing. That's another checkbox or check mark in the column for doom. Let's look at price reductions. 24% of all sellers cutting their price. Last year was 17. This is a 10-year high. Yeah, 10-year high of people cutting prices. In Clarksville, is it Clarksville, right? Yeah, Clarksville, Tennessee. Wow. Okay. So you got sellers cutting more than ever. You got more inventory, lower demand, longer days on market. Now, for the big reveal, what's happening with prices? They're basically down flat. They have been for a while now, for what since 2020. I mean, they're kind of flat through here too. I mean, you really didn't have growth. You have to go all the way back to like February 2023 is the last time you had real home price growth, beating inflation, right? But this killed you through here. Look at this, 23% home price growth in 2022. When all that inventory fell, I wish I could overlay inventory on this chart, but they don't do that. But if you remember the inventory chart, it was like, woo, way down, straight down. People, I got to buy now. The prices went nuts. People pay anything whatever they had to, they'd pay. Home prices growing 23%. That's in 2022. Those days are over. Look at this now. It's just kind of sideways, slightly down each month. And that's what happens with more supply and less demand. Let's look at the typical value. Probably hasn't fallen that much. No, it hasn't. In fact, your peak was like $404,000 in 2025, this time last year. And you've kind of slowly started going down. So I don't know if prices there are doomed or not, but the leading indicators tell me they are. The leading indicators say, man, you got a lot of supply, not as much demand, and more price cuts, longer days on market. That would signal doom coming. So if I was buying a house in a market like this, if it was me, or if I was helping somebody buy a house in this market, I would just explain to them that you probably will have to sit on this thing for a while. Don't think you're going to buy it at market price, at MLS or Zillow price, and go, well, I'm going to turn this around in a couple of years, unless it's distressed and you fix it up. But if it's just a normal house that's, decent, you probably aren't going to really make anything special for at least, it could be 10 years, could be longer, based on what I'm seeing. Doesn't mean you shouldn't buy. It just means be prepared for what could happen, right? And we're seeing this, in a lot of areas where prices are just kind of stagnant. Price growth is just stagnant. It's happening throughout the U.S., nationally too. So great one to look at. Oh, we got to look at taxes. In Clarksville, Tennessee, what's happening with taxes? $2,100 for your median property tax annually. I mean, that's pretty cheap. Comparatively. I'm not saying it's cheap for you, but it's cheap when it comes to most markets. $2,100. Okay. All right. What's next? I'm buying, moving from Korea, also looking at 80920. Yeah, what did you... 80917 is what I looked at before. And now you're moving from Korea, huh? Cool. 80920. Let's look. Are you in the military? I don't know. Just asking. 20. Let's look at that one too. Another Colorado Springs one. Wow, inventory here is up a lot. 144% versus 2019. Lots more homes. A lot more homes. Lots more homes. 154 on the market. Look at that. Like that column's straight up, right? Easy to see you've got a lot more homes on the market to choose from. That's great if you're a buyer. It's good. It's good. You should be able to, look at a fair number of them, make some offers. Take your time. Be patient. On a market like this, where you see that inventory growing, no reason to run out like a madman and just buy the first thing you see. What about days on market? a little longer to sell a home, right? A little longer in Colorado Springs, 80920, right next door to the last zip code we looked at for you. Just by 1 day. That's not a big deal. Let's look at pending. $52, last year 51. So there is buying demand. People are buying homes more than they were even during COVID, but we have more inventory. So there's more to choose from. Makes sense that there's more buyers. By the way, if you were going to see a real housing market crash, you would not see this trend. You would see more supply. You've got that, but you would not see more demand. Like demand would be completely gone. Why? Because the last time the housing market really crashed, there was no credit. You couldn't get a loan. We don't have that now. You can get a loan now. The idea or the thought, and I hear people say this, and I'm like, why would you lie to people like that? The idea that banks or lenders are tightening and like not lending to people, that's complete for homeowners, is false. You got to qualify, obviously, but people are getting loans every day. So there is demand. So I guess what I'm saying is if you walk into this market, Eric, and you're like, hey, the housing nerd said I could get a great deal. Well, you can probably negotiate a much better situation than what you were going to negotiate in 2020, 2021, and 2022. But it's not like you're going to buy it for pennies on the dollar, probably, unless it's destroyed, right? Which could be an option. But the point is you're not going to hopefully have to pay over asking. And hopefully the competition isn't insane where they're getting 10 offers. So take your time, look at a lot of homes, and you should be fine. And buy within your means, for goodness sakes. Don't max out your approval. If you're approved for $500,000, don't go looking at a $500,000 home. Nothing says you have to spend that. Let's look at prices there. Yeah, they're down. They've been down for months, right? They're falling. They were up kind of a little bit in 2024, but not much. And they were really down in 2023. But again, look in June of 2022, prices were up 17% versus the year before. That's nuts. And in 2021, they were up nearly 18%, which is not healthy, not sustainable in any shape or form. How much are homes? They peaked at $560,000, the typical house. So that market's, I think it's more expensive than the other one, right? Than the other zip code. But then they kind of went sideways, down, down, down. So I don't know that this market is doomed with pricing, but you should probably see further price decline. You should probably see further price decline. How much are condos? Do we have that data? No, yeah, we do. Look at condos. Wow. 348 is where they peaked at in Colorado Springs. $348,000. Now that same condo, 306. That's a big decline. There's no doubt that's a big decline. Do I have condo prices year over year? Yeah, I do. Yeah, look at this decline in prices in condos. I mean, every month, down, 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 down. Like this month, condo prices are down 6% year over year in Colorado Springs. Not that you want a condo, but you could probably find a discounted deal here. I mean, prices are plummeting. Huh. Yeah, Colorado's housing market is suffering with prices overall. Well, good luck to you, Eric. I'm sure you'll do well. Packet Watchdog, how you doing, man? Crash to me is 20% decrease in price from year prior. Wow. Here in Phoenix Valley. Well, let's look at Phoenix. I haven't looked at that in a while. What's happening in Phoenix? Not in a detailed way. Let's spell it right first. In Phoenix, let me go by county or zip code. Let's go by zip code. What do we got? Man, there's some areas with serious inventory growth in Phoenix. Goodness gracious. I mean, some of these zip codes are up 200%, 90%, 500% in the amount of homes for sale. Let me look at active inventory count real quick. 178. Yeah, like this one right here, 85326, up 91%. 85326 in Phoenix, 91% in the number of homes for sale. I won't look at all the data here. I'm just looking at, I just want to look at prices and see how they've done. You say 20%, huh? Well, they're not 20% down year over year. They've kind of just, the prices have stagnated in this zip code in Phoenix, $372,000. They peaked though at $429,000. So they're falling. They're definitely falling. You get a lot of inventory, right? I bet if I go up and look at this inventory number, I bet it's crazy in Phoenix. I mean, 328 last year, 381. By the way, this is like another kind of weird thing that I'm starting to see trend in the market is that in many areas where inventory had exploded, in 2023, 2024, 2025, we're now losing inventory. Now, the housing bears will tell you that's because people are delisting, which is probably true. But what they fail to follow that up with is they don't need to sell. If you're delisting a home from the market, you don't need to sell it very badly. But they won't tell you that because obviously that would tell you that, hey, sellers aren't in distress and they can't tell you, they don't want to be truthful about that. But the reality is that people are delisting in a lot of markets, maybe like this one, where you lost 60 listings year over year. And they just don't need to sell. So they're like, nah, I just won't sell right now. Anybody who needs to sell that's distressed isn't going to delist. They're just going to drop their price or get foreclosed on or do a short sale. Anyway, that's Phoenix. I got some jewels here. What's up with some jewels? Run the jewels. Well, I don't even know. I don't know what jewels are. 10 jewels. I don't know how to cash these in. Can I buy something with my jewels? I don't know. Is this like Clash of Clan or something? I have no idea what that means. Thank you, though. I appreciate your jewels. YouTube always comes out with these creator things that are like this. And you're like, I don't even know what this is. I may go to Vegas with Zuber. It's just a couple of days. Yeah, you're right. I went earlier this year. It was great. Yeah, some of me thinks I should go. I'd like to meet y'all out there. I would love to. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, there's a big real estate investing meetup with one rental at a time community. It's in Vegas. And anyway, there's a bunch of people that I know that I interact with or do videos with out there. So they have an event coming up in January, I think. Look at this one. Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturing plant is also creating a nice hunk of high-paying jobs here too. Oh, interesting. Yeah, we're seeing the same thing with Intel. I'm 10 minutes from the Intel plant they're building, and the growth of the market is unreal. And they're actual jobs, like they're not temporary construction jobs. Some of them are, but then there will be permanent jobs. I'd love to see you there. I'll put my networking abilities into overdrive and make sure you meet the people you want to meet. My son is going, Now you're tempting me to pull the trigger and go. I just got to wiggle out of some things first. Oh, let's do it. 43064. 43064. Yep. Let's look at that one. All right. This is that Union County? Is that where you are? I can never remember. 43062. Oh, what? 64, not 62. 64. It's Union County, right? Plain City, yeah. Plain City, Ohio, Union County. So let's look at what's happening. Wow, you have a lot more inventory than you did in 2019. That's because of new builds. So they're probably, there are new builds that hit the MLS. And in that market, I got to think you had no inventory before with really anything, right? And now you're growing that inventory a lot because of mainly new builds. That's like the Jerome Village area, right? A lot more homes being built. Expensive, by the way. Median days on market, 50. Last year, 44. So it's slowing. It is slowing as far as how long they're taking to sell. 70 homes sold last month. The year before, 72. Demand's there. You definitely have demand, again, because you probably have supply. Price reductions, 24%. Decent amount of people cutting their price. If you're a seller having to compete with one of the new builds, that's something that doesn't happen a lot in Ohio. But when it does, it can be challenging. I've helped people sell homes where there are new homes down the street, and I'm helping them sell an existing home from 3 years ago. It's not a slam dunk, even if you price it right, because the new builds have incentives that you can't match. Buying down the rate, giving you a free, whatever, washer and dryer, $50,000 off at closing, paying your closing costs, and all these incentives. So it's hard to compete with new builds if you're an existing home seller. All right, price reductions are 24%, so people are cutting. Let's look at prices, though. How are they doing? Up only 0.5%. I mean, you can see the growth. It's plain as day that the home price growth has slowed and slowed and slowed. I'm seeing this throughout central Ohio, by the way, especially in the more expensive areas, where that growth is just not there anymore. So you're certainly, from a real standpoint, adjusted for inflation, you're negative. Will it go negative on a nominal basis? It could. It could. Let's look at prices. What are the prices there? $563. It's not an all-time high. $563,000. Last year, $560,000. So home prices barely growing, but they're not negative on a nominal basis yet. Not yet. Now, check this out. Let's look at property taxes there. And if All Nighter's still on, or anybody who was watching earlier when I looked at California, take a look at this. I'm surprised they're this low. $5,700 for a $580,000 house, right? $5,700. And All Nighter was at $5,700 approximately for a $900,000 house. So it's so your $900,000 house would easily be over $10,000 a year in property tax here, easily. And in some areas, it would probably be approaching 12 or 13,000, depending on the school district. So property taxes in Ohio are no joke. I mean, you've grown from 2020 property taxes. This is the median payment in the zip code, by the way, have gone from $3,600 in 2020 to $5,700 in 2024. This doesn't even count 2025 or 2026. Not good. This is a big, big problem in our state. Well, that's happening in Plain City. Thanks for suggesting that one. I always appreciate you jumping on and checking in from Plain City. $450,000 valued homes aren't going to 250 to 300,000. Agreed. Unless somehow interest rates go to 15%, which is extremely unlikely. Federal government hates high interest too. Yeah, I don't think interest rates are coming down anytime soon. I really don't. Mortgage rates. They could very well stay above 6% for the next 5 years. They could. So that's important when you're buying a house, right? Or investing, for goodness sakes. Don't pretend you can just refinance next year. That may not work out well. But yeah, I agree. I think you have to have a catalyst for some type of housing crash. It can't just be because of unaffordability. That is like the worst theory. It makes no sense at all. It's like, no, so just because things are expensive, you think that the prices are just going to fall? The cure for high prices is not high prices. The cure for high prices is more supply and less demand. So you got to have credit shut off. You got to have sellers that need to sell, that absolutely have to sell, or they are doomed. And as that supply grows and buyers can't buy, prices will definitely come down. That's what happened during the great financial crisis. Remember, we have about 1,300,000, approximately 1,300,000, 1,300,000 homes in the U.S. right now for sale. 1,300,000 homes. When it peaked before prices crashed nationally, we had 4 million homes nationally for sale. 4 million. Now, 1.3. And you're faced with the brutal reality that most homeowners don't need to sell and don't want to sell. So they're not going to. So that supply is constrained. Even people with 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, or 50 homes, they just don't need to sell on average. So they're like, I don't have to sell. I'm not going to today. No fault of their own. And it's not greed. It's not greed. It's interest rates. And it's prices. Prices went up. I mean, the owner's not being greedy. You would, if you owned 50 homes and you didn't need to sell them, would you just put them on the market at a low price just to be nice to humanity? Come on. I agree with you, Packet Watchdog. Property taxes are steep in Texas. Yep. Yeah, they are. And insurance, you're right. Insurance is the other factor you got to consider. Yep. Yeah, 2.5% property tax rate, that's high. There's some areas of Ohio that are over 2%. There are. Yeah, it's no fun. Yes, sir, in the Army. Thank you for your service. The housing nerd, I'm sure all the housing nerds out there appreciate your service. So thank you. Seriously. Without you, we would not be able to do this. What's up, Sarah? How you doing? I know you're probably going to that event. I know you're a Zuber person, right? It's great. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits out there. I think what you're pointing to, Sarah, a lot of benefits for VA loans. So as a VA buyer, Eric, take advantage of your benefits. Obviously, I'm sure you will, but VA loans are maybe some of the best loans out there. And the people that get them deserve them. So I don't think anybody argues with that. That second zip code we looked at is a newer development with nicer schools, supposedly. Okay. All right. Again, look at a lot of homes. Knock on doors in the neighborhood. Go there at night. Go there in the morning. Go there on a weekend. What's the neighborhood like? What goes on? That's a great way to look at it. One thing you can't change in a home, no matter what happens, is the location. You can't move the home. I mean, if you have a mobile home, you can. But if you have a normal house, you can't move it. So, make sure you're buying in the right spot that you want to be in and plan to be there for a while. It takes 8 to 10% in a lot of cases to sell your house. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. So you can't just buy a home in the next year unless it's appreciated a ton, or you put a ton of work into it and you bought it distressed, and then you put sweat equity in, and you realize that you can't just turn around and sell it in most markets. People were doing that during COVID, but those days are over. Not sure if you'll be there. That's okay. I may not either. I don't know. All right, Boston, asking for your kid. All right, Emily, I'd love to look at Boston. 02136. Now, before I look at this, This is one of those zip codes that Melody Wright has said that is crashing. Like, she really wants Boston to crash. I don't know why, but she's like, yeah, that's doomed there. Okay, let's find out. Inventory. Let's look at that in 02136. 31 houses on the market this year. Last year, 24. So you are gaining inventory. You are gaining homes on the market. Good. That gives you some choices. How long are homes sitting? Homes are sitting longer. Look at that. From 37 days to 45 days. So homes are sitting longer, a little more supply, although only 30-some listings isn't a lot of supply. Pending listing count. Wow. This is weird. 30, I don't even know if this is right. 32, all of a sudden, you were having like 4, 5. Let me back out to the county. Maybe you just don't have a big sample size, so let me see what's going on at the county level. That's Suffolk County, right? Let me just double check. I just want to make sure I get it right. Yeah, you're at the bottom of Suffolk County. So, all right, inventory count definitely growing in the county. This is better data. 1,800 houses on the market. Last year, 1,600. That's a big increase. And you have more than 2019. Property tax delinquency in this zip code is some of the worst in the country. I did a video about that on my channel, and it's no joke. Property tax delinquency is big in Suffolk County. We'll get to that in a minute, but inventory is growing. You've got a 10-year high of homes for sale. Melody could be right. No pun intended. All right. Median days on market, 53. Last year, 53. So homes are taking about the same amount of time to sell. So either there are buyers now or people are taking them off the market. Either one. Let's look at pending listings. Yeah, they're acting really strange. Like, I don't know if the data, I don't know what's up with the realtor.com data for this. I mean, there's no way the pending sales exploded like that. So let's do, let me do price reduction share. Only 16% of sellers are cutting their price. Not that many. I do have delistings in here. I don't usually show it because this data is only through May from Redfin, but let's look and see what's going on. Only 7% of homes are being delisted, which means people must be buying them, because if people aren't delisting them and supply is growing and days on market's not growing, it means it's still a seller's market. You know, it really is at the end of the day, although it's changing probably to more of a balanced market. What's rent there? I'm curious. $3,423. That's up, what, $100 year over year? So rent's up too. Costs more to rent a place there in Suffolk County. Let's look at prices of homes. They're only up 0.2%. So homes aren't really up that much in price. You know, nothing extraordinary. Whoa, what's going on here? Nothing extraordinary. Typical single family value is down slightly, $821,000. The peak was $840 in Suffolk County, Massachusetts. So you're definitely down $20,000 versus last year, and that was really the peak. I don't think prices are doomed here by any means. I don't think the housing market's doomed, but the insane run-up of prices is probably over for right now, because you are gaining supply. What about condos there? How much are those? 711,000. They're flat for the year. So your prices are up over the last, 6-7 years with condos, and you're really, I guess you're right now, you're near an all-time high, close to it, 711,000 for a condo. So I would say that there's probably still competition for your son to buy. Not like he's going to run into no competition, but the market isn't probably as, I guess, hot as it was a few years ago. So instead of being super insane, it's probably just crazy. And I don't live there, so you've got to talk to a local realtor, but that's what I see in the data. Let's look at taxes, though. I wonder what these look like. $4,649 is the median property tax rate or payment. And the rate's low. The rate's only 0.66, but their delinquencies are really bad. I just did a report on that. Like they had, it was over 20% of all homes in the market had a tax delinquency. But property taxes aren't insane in Suffolk County. Like as far as the amount of them, especially on that value. Ohio is more than that. But I think your son just probably needs to be patient, obviously. But I doubt he's going to find like the deal of his dreams. Not based on what I saw in the market. Let's see if there's anything else in here that would help you. Let's look at. Let's look at new. Yeah, let's look at new listings. Yeah, so they're down. Your new listings are down. So there must be homes that maybe are delisted and relisted. Even though the delisted percentage wasn't high, people were putting their house on the market, maybe taking it off and then just putting it right back on, maybe. I don't know. But there aren't a ton of new listings compared to several years ago. So it's not like a flood of sellers entering the market. Maybe just the properties that are on the market just struggling to sell. But the days on market was not crazy. It wasn't high. But the price trend tells me that it's not a crash. It's just not insane anymore in Suffolk County. Cool. Good one to look at. All right. What else we got? A couple more, and then I'm done. Oh, you're in northern New Jersey. Seeing price reductions. Not just a few. Good. About time, right? You see rates staying high till 2030, 2033. I do too. And by the way, I mean, I'm not sure that the people who are in charge of monetary policy really care if rates are high. Because if you're an asset holder and you're an asset owner and you own rental properties and stuff that appreciates over time and has favorable tax treatment, you're like, well, as long as inflation's high, I'm good. What the government doesn't want is deflation, right? They don't want deflation. So they're going to do anything they can to keep deflation from coming. Yeah, you can't buy into that, right, Sarah? You can't. You can't buy into the fact that rates are going to crash or come down so you can refi. Marry the house and date the rate is the worst saying invented in the history of real estate. That's the cheesiest, worst thing you can ever say to somebody. Marry the house and date the rate. I understand the concept, and if you can do it, great. But buying a house based on that, a primary house and even an investment property is nuts. That's why all these multifamily investors are going under. The north end of Boston. That's where you were? Yeah, in that market. I don't have that. I don't have that on this chart. I wish I did. It's not a bad idea. I don't control it, though. I have to ask Lance about it. No. He already bought last year. Got it for 30 under asking. Good job. Nice. $630,000 for a 650 square foot apartment. I mean, it's Boston, right? Boston's super cool. So great city. So it's going to be a lot more expensive than other areas. 07853. Look at the reductions. Oh, you're in New Jersey. Let's look at New Jersey. 07853, and then I'll probably wrap up. I don't have a ton of people on today, and I've got a couple clients I have to follow up with. 07853. New Jersey. Well, there's not a lot of inventory. So I'm going to go to a county level if that's okay, because you only have 24 listings. There's not a lot of data. Morris County, New Jersey. Wow. Look at this. So your inventory has grown. The good news is you have 115 more homes than you did last year on the market. That's the good news. The bad news is that if I compare it to 2019, you're down 1,900 homes. In fact, you're down 70% in the number of homes on the market versus 2019. 70%. Wow, that's supply destruction. Ain't nobody selling there. I mean, why would they? They're probably like, oh, there's nowhere to go. I mean, you have nothing on the market. It may take you years to get that inventory back. Could take you five years, 10 years. Who knows? Shoosh. It's going to be interesting to see where these prices are. Median days on market, 36, last year, 31. Homes are sitting longer. They are sitting longer. Maybe prices have just got to a point that people are like, I'm going to wait a little while. It's possible. Pending listing count. This chart's not playing nice. Let me do that. 768, last year, 709. So people are buying. People are buying. In fact, if you think about it, you only had 800 and some listings and 768 went into contract. It's a big percentage of the market. So there is demand. There is demand. And you're seeing more demand than last year. So maybe because of inventory going up, people are like, oh, I got something I can actually buy. You said you're seeing a lot of price cuts. Let's look. Price reduction share. 7.6%. So that's countywide, 7% of all sellers are cutting their price. Now, compared to historical norms, that's pretty low. If you go back in time into 2019, look at this. 22% were cutting their price in the county. As in the county level, not in your zip code, but you had a lot more price cuts before COVID. I mean, again, 22% were cutting their price, nearly a quarter. Now it's only 7.6%. Goodness gracious. What about delistings, just out of curiosity? Share of delistings. 3%. That's it. Only 3% of all the listings are being delisted. That means they're taken off market before they sell. That's either expired, canceled, temporary off market, whatever. So that rage delisting thing is not happening in Morris County, New Jersey. And you've never had it, actually. Nobody's delisting where you are. So they're probably just leaving them on the market and going, you know what? I'll just leave them. I'll just leave my house on the market for, it doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't, as a seller, really. What about rent? Before I get to prices, what does rent do there? $2,800, $2,874 for rent. Last year, $2,833. So rent hasn't crashed. That's still going up. Let's look at prices. Yeah, look at this. Up 3.5%. So they're not like up 20%, thank goodness, or 9%. But they're not up like, but they're not down. They're not crashing in Morris County, New Jersey. Not crashing. Let's look at the prices of a single family house. 743 grand. That's an all-time high where you are. Homes have never been more expensive than they are right now in Morris County, New Jersey. So you could be, I mean, I don't doubt you. You're seeing price reductions. Not surprised. But overall, as the county, it looks like things are still higher for longer with prices, and inventory is lower for longer. It just seems like you just can't climb out of the inventory hole. But we'll keep our eye on it. It's again, if if you're out there frustrated about the housing market and you're like, I really want prices to crash. These sellers are delusional. They may be. But ask yourself this. If you were selling your house and somebody said, you're being greedy, just drop the price so that I can buy it, would you unless you had to? No, you would not. You wouldn't do it. Unless you had to sell the home, you're not dropping the price just to be nice. I've never ran into somebody who's done that. If you have, let me know, but I don't see that happening. So the idea that like, just give it another month for you, Aaron, right? Just give it another month. Demographics are going to take hold and pigeons are going to come home to roost or whatever you want to call it. And you'll see in a month or in a quarter. I don't know. I look at your market and I go, I don't see how prices would crash there in the next month. I mean, and I don't see how demographics are going to change that in the next quarter. Because I'm betting that there are people in your area that if prices did start to come down, they would buy the homes. Unless there's a massive job problem, credit crisis, people can't get a loan, and sellers are forced to sell homes at big discounts. Other than that, it's just going to be stuck. COVID wrecked us. The money printing, the cheap money, the FOMO, the sitting at home on Instagram all day wrecked us. And the people with the benefited the most are asset holders. And the rich benefited the most. The top 20% benefited the most from COVID stimulus. Not the direct payments, but all the mortgage-backed security buying and all the stimulus. And the continued expansion of the balance sheet is not going to help the bottom 80%. So this game is designed for the top 20%, and they know that. So that's why they're doing it. Why try to design something for the part that doesn't help you? That's what they're thinking. What's up, Aaron? 07853, share with 5 other zip codes. Okay, there are 49 for sale in my school district. Okay. Yeah, watch the inventory. That'll tell you where prices are going to go, right? This is just the county. That's all I was looking at. Hey, you're welcome, Nina. I'm happy to help. Look at, this data is no good. Okay. 12 in my town over the last 2 weeks. 12 in my town over the last 2 weeks. 12. I don't know what that means. 12 for sale in the last 2 weeks. Look at the MLS, Laugh Out Loud, or Zillow. This data is no good. Yeah, I mean, you tell me. If you're able to go out there and find the deal of your dreams, prices are crashing, this data is wrong. And I mean, I didn't create the data. So I'm only, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? 86314 in Arizona. But if, just going back to New Jersey, like if there was massive distress or all of a sudden people were cutting prices and you were seeing home prices drop substantially, it would reflect somewhat in this data, right? You would see, and actually this uses Zillow data. The prices use Zillow data, and you said Zillow, so I don't know. It's I'm not saying you're local, so you know, but it's it doesn't look. I don't see a lot of deals when I just look at overall in the county. But let's keep looking at it. Keep coming back and let's examine it next month and see what happens. 86314. Prescott. Let's do it. 192 listings. Last year, 179. So you're definitely gaining inventory, Packet Watchdog. And compared to 2019, you're up 64%. Versus New Jersey, where you're down 70% in inventory. That's crazy. Median days on market, 58. Last year, 51. Homes sitting longer, a lot more inventory. Let's do pending listing count, 108. Last year, 58. Holy cow, somebody's buying. So you got demand up, you got supply up. Again, I'm seeing as we gain supply in a lot of markets, that's probably one of the other indicators that I'm like, are we going to continue to fall in some of these areas with price, or is it going to moderate? Like these areas that have been crashing with price over the last couple of years, what's going to happen? Well, if you see more demand in your market as supply goes up, would tell me people have been waiting for some supply and they're probably buying at lower prices. At some point, there's going to be a buyer for every home. It just depends on what price it is. 108 in pending sales. So pending sales are up a lot. Let's look at home prices. I mean, they're basically flat, right? They've been flat for a long time there. They were down a little bit in 2023. $438,000. They peaked at $454,000. So they've been flat, I guess, for a while, right? But they had a big drawdown in 2022. That's the weird thing, right? I mean, I think that's kind of fascinating and strange and counterintuitive to what you hear from like other analysts will say. Like, hey, prices are going to continue to fall. And you're like, there are areas where prices are continuing to fall, but then you got an area like this in Prescott, Arizona, where you're like, well, prices aren't really falling right now. They're not going up, but they're not falling. They kind of had their fun, then they went down. Now they're just kind of going sideways, right? 454 to 421, now back up to 438. So are prices doomed there? I wouldn't think so. Not with that demand going up like that. Like all of a sudden, people ran in and bought it, looks like. What about price reductions? How many people are cutting their price there? 19%. Just, I think that's nearly what we're seeing nationwide. In fact, it's less than if you go back in time to 2019, 2018. You had 28% and 21% of people cutting their price. Now 19%. So what about delistings? Oh, that's 39. Let me look. Oops. Let me look at share. 8%. So 1 out of 8. No, I'm sorry. Nearly 1 out of 10 homes. Nearly 1 out of 10 homes on the market are being delisted. I think that was a great narrative that John Brooks invented. Like when he coined that phrase, it was a perfect time because people were looking for a reason to explain why supply was falling. So he was like, oh, I'm going to create this idea. And he did a great job creating it. People latched onto it. They're like, see, they're delisting, they're rage delisting. And you're like, well, I mean, they can't be too upset because they don't need to sell their home. If they needed to sell their home, they would drop the price to sell it, right? Your market, though, man, it doesn't look like, I don't know, I look at this and think prices may not plummet in a meaningful way like they did in 2022. Who knows? I don't live there, but that's what the data shows me. Again, this is like an overview, right? John Williams, what's up? Are you that composer from Jaws? That's not you, right? 43146. That'd be hilarious. Also did the soundtrack for Jurassic Park, I think. All right. Let's look at 43146, and then I'm done. Oh, yeah, there's no data here. I'm going to go out to that county level. But wait a minute. Yeah, I don't want to analyze Franklin County. That's really not going to be helpful. Are you in Franklin County or is it? No, you're in Pickaway. Let's do Pickaway County. Pickaway County, you've got that big drone facility being built, right? I think. The Anduril drone facility is under construction, massive facility. If they're not building a data center in Ohio, they're going to build a drone facility. But there's tons of building here. Big, not a lot of housing, but big factories. Active listing count, though, is up 139. Last year, 136, so not up a lot year over year. But if I go back into 2020, look at that, 41. So you've definitely gained homes on the market. Homes are sitting a little longer, too. They are 44 days compared to 36. What about pending listing? 100. Last year, 99. Year before that, 108. So there's still buyers. As you've gained inventory, buyers have shown up. Are they buying all the inventory? I don't know. We'll look in a minute, but they're certainly buying. 22% are cutting their price. So it's not 8%. It's not 3%. 22%, decent amount. You go back historically, and that's a little higher than what we've seen. Certainly higher than in 2020 when you only had 30 or 3.6% of people cutting their price. Nobody had to cut their price, right? Buyers were willing to pay anything. What about delistings? I wasn't really looking at this at the beginning, but now it may make sense to do it. 2%, only 2% of people, of sellers, delisting their home. That ain't a lot at all. That's like nothing. 2 out of every 100 homes. What about prices? Prices still up 3.4%, pretty much what I'm seeing across Ohio. So what does that mean for your actual price? 336. That's the typical price. Not an all-time high, but very close. Within a few $100. Or like what? We're within $1,000 of your all-time high. So unless you have a real explosion of inventory, I don't know that prices will decline on a nominal basis. I don't know if you actually see like a decline of home prices, but at least they're not going up 11% or 20% anymore. Let's look at property taxes real quick. I forgot to look at that in Arizona. Sorry about that, packet watchdog. Sorry about that, but I skipped that. Median annual property tax, $2,566. That's the median property tax in 2024. Actually, not that bad. I realize if you're on fixed income, that's bad. But overall, when you look at the other markets, that ain't that bad. Okay. That's Pickaway County. That's what's happening. All right. I got more jewels. Look at this. Six, 7 jewels, 6, 7. Funny. Oh, man. You guys keep piling on. What time is it? All right. Man, let me think here. We got Fresno. I got Fishers, Indiana. And I got 32606. Where's that? Where's 32606? Gainesville, Florida. And Fresno, and then Indiana. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll do the Florida one. I'm going to do one of the Fresno zips, and I'll go ahead and do the Fishers, Indiana, and then that's it. All right. So if you're joining after that, you're going to have to come back next week. 32606. I said I would do one more, and I'm doing 3 more. 32606. Let's do it. Gainesville, Florida. I want to find out what's happening there. What's it? 32606. Is that right? Yeah. 77. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm looking at these markets where inventory clearly exploded from 36 houses all the way up to 88 homes, right? You had a big growth of inventory. Now this year it fell. from last year. And I'm seeing that across the state of Florida, all across the state. Like, look at this. From a statewide look of Florida. And this is interesting. And you won't hear this from people on YouTube. You're only going to hear that Florida's finished, that sellers are doomed in every market across Florida. But look at active inventory year over year. It's down 14%. In Florida, inventory is now lower than it was last year. And I'll go into Gainesville in a minute, but I can't resist this. This is it's fascinating. You can easily see this is statewide inventory for Florida. Look at the change that we've witnessed over the past, 5 years? Inventory was like 134,000 houses on the market in the whole state of Florida. Then it fell all the way to 51,000 homes. That was a big decrease in inventory, right? Then interest rates went up. Sellers freaked out, or owners freaked out, threw a bunch of houses on the market, and that inventory shot all the way up to a peak of around 181,000 homes. And now you've lost 24,000 homes versus last year. So again, like if there was this big explosion of distress in Florida, this wouldn't be coming down. Why would it? And it can't be delistings. That doesn't equal distress. Delistings do not equal distress. Delistings are people don't need to sell, and they didn't. So they're like, I'll pull my home off the market. I'll look at delistings in a minute, but it's down. You have fewer active homes on the market than last year. By the way, let's look at new listings. How many people are actually listing their home for sale? You can see last year was 38,000, this year 39,000. That's not down that much, actually. It's quite frankly, people that don't need to sell are just taking their house off the market. And it's not a one-time thing. It's been happening month after month. So let's look at pending. Yeah, so you have more demand than you did last year in Florida. Last year you had 42,000 homes going to contract in July. This year, 45,000. So more homes going into contract. What about price reductions? Only 20%. Price reductions are falling in Florida overall. We'll look at Gainesville in a minute, but man, fewer people cutting their price in Florida. What about delistings? 6% of all sellers have delisted. Last year it was 7%. And that's grown, certainly. Like I go back at 4% in 2021. It grew to 7% of homes being delisted. But your new listings are down. Inventory is down. Delistings are down. Pending sales are up. I'm not sure how you can, if the housing market in Florida was in great financial crisis level stress, you would see a lot more inventory continue to grow, obviously, right? And you wouldn't see people taking their homes off the market at all. And you would see a ton of new listings. All right, let's look at prices overall in the state. Yeah, look at this. Prices are down, still down 2.8%. At one point, they were up 29% year over year, which is just crazy. This is for the state. But Florida's a big housing market, so it's important to look at. Typical home value there, $399,000. And that's down from $425,000. So you're down about $25,000. Not the worst thing in the world, but certainly down. And that's statewide. So now let's look at Gainesville and see what we find. Gainesville, Florida, what's going on in Gainesville? 77 houses on the market, last year 88, so you lost inventory too. Median days on market. How long are homes sitting? 60 days. Last year, 74 homes are actually selling quicker than they did last year. What about pending listings? 21 pending listings. So you must have had some people that took their homes off the market, I imagine. Yeah, 8% of people took their houses off the market. And the rest just left them on, right? But inventory is down, which is insane. Now, you don't have that many homes for sale, but still. Did we look at price cuts? Let's look at price cuts. Price cuts. 23% of all sellers cutting their price. But in 2024, it was 38%. That was probably a big chunk of people that need to sell. They were like, I got to sell. I'll put it on. Then they cut their price. When they don't get they can't sell it, they cut the price, and they keep doing that until they do sell it. Prices in Gainesville down 1.6%. They've been down now for months, right? You can see that. Down 1.6% still. What about the typical house? How much is that? $355,000. It peaked at $370,000. So prices are down about 15 grand, about 15,000 bucks from the all-time high in Gainesville. What about the condo value? 186. Your peak was 194. Prices are going down there, but they're not like they haven't fallen off a cliff yet. And again, you're losing inventory. Let me look at, I'm curious about property taxes. How bad are they there? 3,500 bucks. Not, nothing to sneeze at. That was in 2024. $3,500 for your median property tax payment. So it'll be really interesting to see how Florida, how the inventory in particular changes in Florida. In fact, if you look at this, look at the metro level look at the state, this is what's really surprising. Look at Jacksonville, Florida. Look at this inventory. It's down 20% versus last year. Look at active inventory count, 7,800. Last year, 9,700. What? They've lost 2,000 listings year over year. So, I don't know if I'm a Florida housing analyst, I look at this and go, geez, our inventory growth stalled. It just stalled out. Now we're losing homes for sale. If interest rates stay high, I think you'll continue to see supply destruction. I think you will continue to see that. Sellers just don't have motivation to sell. They just don't. I'm curious on the typical value in Jacksonville. 363, it peaked at 375. 11 grand, I guess. 12 grand difference in price. So not a complete debacle, but definitely a drop. Definitely a drop. What about condos? How are they doing in Jacksonville? I don't know. I just like to look at these markets. Wow, that's a big drop there. 236 for condos in Jacksonville. Last year was 282. Or not 282 last year. The peak was about 283. Or so, no, I'm sorry, peak was 290. Now 236. That's a big drop. That is a big drop. So who knows? But it's Florida is a crazy market because Brown is where inventory is down year over year. So in Jacksonville, inventory is down 20%. In Daytona Beach, it's down 20%. In Miami, it's down 17%. In Cape Coral, it's down 20%. In Northport, it's down 18%. In Naples, it's down 19%. In Lakeland, it's down 6%. And in Tampa, it's down 8%. So will you continue to see supply destruction in Florida? I don't know. Maybe. It's trending that way anyway. Anyway, that's Florida. All right, I'll do the other zip codes. What was it? Fresno. 93720. California, yay. Fresno, home of One of the best linebackers ever, right? Isn't that where James Harrison went to school? Had that Super Bowl pick for the Steelers. All right. 93720 in Fresno. What do we got? Inventory up 40%. Is there a lot of inventory? Oops. Or not a lot? Oh, you got a decent amount. 113 homes. Last year, 80. That's a big jump. Supply definitely growing. Good for you. Days on market, down a little bit. So homes aren't sitting quite as long as they did last year, but your inventory's up. What about pending listings? 53, last year 41. So more buyers coming in, which is bizarre, right? Like what? Yeah. Homes not sitting as long. They're moving quicker. And you've got more buyers with more supply. I mean, I'm helping several people buy a home right now. And if there was more inventory, they would have already bought because there would have been something that they would have probably liked. But right now, there's not a lot in Ohio anyway. So it's like, oh, you gotta have more inventory. Price cuts. 21%. So just a normal number of people cutting prices on homes. What about delistings? 9%, a little higher than what we've seen from some other markets. So 1 out of 10 homes are being yanked off the market before they close. The other ones are just being left on if they don't close or they don't go into contract. And let's look at prices. How are home prices? Flat. They've been flat now for months. You got to go back into 2024 to see any home price growth. So home prices are not growing right now. They're kind of just stagnant. Yeah, they're just going sideways. $520,000. They peaked. I mean, you're close to an all-time high in price. They peaked at like 521 approximately. But now you're losing inventory. No, I'm sorry. You're gaining inventory, but there's more demand. So maybe will you see the prices reaccelerate somewhat? Probably not, not with interest rates the way they are. And you probably will see you could top out with the homes for sale too. As sellers are like, our owners are like, I have nowhere to go. I can't sell. There's no doubt you have more homes for sale. That's that number again, 113. I wouldn't say prices are doomed where you are, at least not yet. But watch this inventory. Look at it. You can go to this. You can get this data for free, by the way. You just go to realtor.com into their data section and you can download it and then dump it into Claude or dump it into ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or whatever you use. Just dump it in there. Just give them the spreadsheet and say, analyze 93720 for me. And it will. Probably better than I do. But you're not going to have as much fun. So that's Fresno. All right. I got one more. Fisher, Indiana. 46037. I don't do a lot of Indianas. How are they doing? Indiana. 46037, right? How many homes do you have on the market? 118. You've actually lost inventory in Fishers, Indiana, 46037. Thanks, Big Red, for suggesting this. By the way, congrats on the championship last year. That was a great win. Unbelievable year you guys had. It was had a great time watching that football team. 118 houses right now. Last year, 128. So you've lost inventory, if you can believe it. Median days on market, 34. Last year, 40. Just like that last zip code we looked at in Fresno. Except that last zip code, you had more supply. In this zip code, you have fewer homes on the market, and it's not taking as long to sell. So homes are moving quicker. Price reductions, 26%. That's high. Higher than other areas. So over a quarter of people are cutting their price. They probably listed way too high. Then they have to cut probably multiple times. Delistings, how many people taking their homes off the market? Just 2% of all listings. Just 2%. Not many at all. 2 out of every 100. So not a lot of sellers are like, I got to take my toys and go home. Prices up 1.3%. They've been barely up for months and months and months. Basically sideways, but not down nominally. So prices aren't crashing there by any means. Typical single family home value, $489,000. That's not a cheap market for Indiana, right? $489,000. And homes of, you're real based nearly you're at an all-time high if you're not at an all-time high. Yeah, you're at an all-time high. Homes have never been more expensive than they are right now in Fishers, Indiana, excuse me. And then, is it Fisher or Fisher? Yeah, Fishers, Indiana. And then we've got median annual property tax. What's that? Wow, $4,223 on a $400 and some thousand home, right? If the home was $1 million, probably be over nearly $10,000 in property tax. Wow, and it's continued to go up and up and up and up with property taxes. Man, this is like one of the greatest compliments I could ever get. Thank you for this. Seriously. You guys are just talking kind of back and forth about Simon, the uneducated economist, who I've had on my channel. It's tremendous. Like, if you're looking for like the real deal when it comes to the housing market and kind of just the hidden reality of the monetary policy, Simon, the uneducated economist on YouTube, is fantastic. And he's just a normal dude. That's what makes it awesome. I love this. Great mentor and realist. Oh, like the housing nerd. I don't know if I'm a mentor, but I am a realist. I'm done with doom and gloom YouTube channels. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of channels out there that just cater to people that don't do anything. They're just like, you're not going to do anything. You're going to sit at home. You're going to hope for demise of the rich and the famous. And I'm going to feed you that. And that will pay my bills through YouTube, right? And they make a lot of money doing it. And it's like, well, you got to be truthful with people, right? You got to be normal, I think. So if a market's going to fall, it's going to fall. And I'll tell you, if a market's up, though, I'm not going to tell you that its demographics are going to take over and, distress is building when clearly it's not, right? I mean, why tell you that? I mean, how many times have we heard people say, like, just wait until Q1 of 2024, you're going to see massive price declines. And then Q1 comes and there's nothing. Then they say, they make an excuse. Usually it's about elections. They'll say, well, because of the elections, it's actually going to be Q4 of 2024. Then that same narrative carries over to 2025 and now 2026. Now they're saying, just wait until Q1 of 2027. And you're like, man, I've waited 3 years. For some reason, they're unable to just look in the camera and go, hey, there are markets where prices are falling and there are markets where prices aren't falling. That's simple, but they can't say that. Anyway, thank you for the compliment. Well, best place in Indiana. I like Indiana. You irrigate your yard, huh? In Arizona? I always wondered how people do that. Just looking through the comments. Vermont, huh? Lack of housing. Most locals can't afford the prices, and the price keep going up as buyers from out of the state can afford them. That's what's happening in Ohio. This is exactly what's happening in Ohio. There's not a lot of new building at all of single family, tons of multifamily. We have maybe more multifamily supply now I mean, our multifamily pipeline is huge. Like people are building massive, big, new apartment complexes. But from a single family house standpoint, nah, nothing like Texas or Florida or Arizona, nothing like that at all. And so we're just in your situation, Vermont, where there's not a lot of good housing available, single family homes, and the new homes are really expensive. Locals can't afford it, and there are people that are moving in from out of state. We had net migration for the first time in Ohio in like 3 decades. So locals are completely priced out. But people coming in from other states are like, 400 grand for our house? I'll take 3, please. We're seeing that. Investors too. Institutional investors loaded into Ohio. Loaded in. All right. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm not going to I try not to tell you what you want to hear, just what you need to hear. Now, granted, my YouTube thumbnails and titles have a doom theme to them. They have to, otherwise nobody's going to click on them and YouTube won't even show them to people. I'm sure you all know that by now, but that's the game YouTube has. And it is what it is. If I could put a video together that said, housing update from the housing nerd, watch it. Great. I wouldn't have to spend time thinking of a title, but YouTube's not going to show it to anybody. And let's be honest, it's fun showing real data to people that don't like it. I mean, I get a tickle out of it because I'm like, well, you may want prices to crash, or you may think that they're crashing because this person said it or this person said it, or because you have a new theme about rage delisting or demographics or the silver tsunami or the 18-year land cycle. Now that's the thing. And you're like, so it's fun to take that and go, this is the data right now. Have you bought a home? Have you bought an investment property? Or are you just hoping for the demise of mankind? So it's fun. Prices are up, except where they're not. Exactly. 28 to 36% DTI is what matters. Man, I agree, Larry. Like, you're saying it exactly right. This is pretty much everything, right? Like, don't overspend, obviously. And prices are up, except where they're not. Today we saw markets where prices are up, and we saw markets where prices are down. That's just how it is. I wish more people would just be honest about that on YouTube instead of saying, I've actually heard people being interviewed on YouTube, housing analysts that are well respected. And when the host asks them, what market are there markets that actually make sense to buy in, or markets that are actually going up in price instead of down? They don't even say yes. They can't bring themselves to say it. They're like, well, but it's delusional. It's delusion that's keeping prices up. And you're like, but that's not the question. Are they going up or not? Just answer the question. Answer the question, Claire. Answer the question. They won't. Because all their Substack followers would run away. $85138. And that's in, you asked about this, right? No, there's another one here. Man, I'm feeling so nice. Frederick, Maryland. I missed this one. What's up, Fountain Racing? It's kind of cool. Let's look at 21702 in Maryland. I got a family member in Maryland. I like Maryland. Shout out Logic. Logic is from Maryland. I like his music. 21702. What's happened with inventory in Maryland? 112 last year, 116. Few homes less, but not a ton. Right, you're just basically the same. But you are elevated in inventory. You're nearly back to 2019 levels. Good. Back to normal levels, they call it. Median days on market, 38. Last year, 29. Homes are sitting longer. That's different than what we just saw in, we looked at that in what was the last market we were looking at? Oh, Indiana. Compared to Indiana, right? Homes are actually sitting longer. They're not moving faster. Pending listings, how are they doing? 73, last year, 70. A little more demand, but it's definitely down from 2021. But again, as I've seen, if you have more supply, if that supply line's growing, unless credit is shut off, it seems like demand now is coming back because there's stuff to buy. In your case, though, you had more demand when there was less to buy. So now it's kind of stagnant, your demand. Not a ton going on. Transactions are probably low, I'm guessing. Price reductions, 19%. So about normal amount of people cutting their price, nothing crazy. Share of delisted homes, 14%. Look at that, folks. Other markets we looked at, like even in Florida, it was only like 6-7% of listings were delisted, that rage delisting. And now it's 14% for you in Maryland, in Frederick, Maryland. So you've got to, it's a little more than 1 out of 10 people are taking their homes off the market. It's not half, but it's more than other markets I've seen today. Let's look at year over year price. How's that? You're starting to fall negative now, starting to. Look at this, negative on a nominal basis, down 0.8% in Frederick, Maryland. See, this is like Larry said, prices are going up except where they're not. I'm going to steal that, Larry. I am. Sometimes it takes the simplest way to say things, and I don't do a great job at that. $488,000 is your typical value. $488,000. All-time high was like $491, so you're right there. You're right near all-time highs. What about rent? I don't always check rent, but let's check rent. Do I have rent for that? $2,019 for rent. Last year, $1,979. So rent is growing, but barely growing. But barely growing. Up 2%. By the way, when I'm doing an investment analysis and I'm looking at a property to buy, I always use 2% as my rent increase. That's it. 2%. And then I run the scenario for, hey, what if rent falls 5% or 10%? Am I going to be in trouble with the property? Just kind of a litmus test. Let's look at taxes. $4,676. It's up, but that's on 4,676, and that's I'm just looking at how much the houses were again. On 500 grand nearly. That's not that bad. I mean, locals may not like it, but there are areas of the state or the U.S. where property taxes are a lot worse. So, yeah. I mean, again, it's unreal that that's only it's $4,000 approximately on $500,000, when in California it's $5,000 on $900,000. Yeah, that ratio is crazy. It's not. It's completely different in California with property tax. That's what they want Ohio to do. A lot of people are like, hey, how do we change the property tax system here? Because they're trying to abolish property taxes, right? So they're going to have to do something to replace the revenue. But one of the ideas, I guess, if they don't abolish them, if that doesn't go through on the ballot or anything, would be, now it's not a Florida abolishment. It's not a fake abolishment. Florida's abolishment in property tax is fake. It's just a certain portion of the population gets a reduction of property tax. It's not an abolishment of property tax. at all. And so, but Ohio is different. It's 100% abolishment if it goes through, like zero for anybody, investors, data centers, institutional investors, mom and pop investors, old people, young people, rich people, poor people, first-time buyers, 10th-time buyers, zero property tax across the board. Industrial, commercial, doesn't matter. Imagine being the new governor trying to figure that out. If it went through, which it may not. It may not even make the ballot, but if it does, how do they replace that revenue? But one of the ideas to change the tax system here is to change to what California does, where it's based on the value of the property, not and what you paid for it, not the value. And then it's kind of fixed. But I got to think that keeps a lot of people locked into their home, even more so. That would keep me locked in forever. Why would I sell and pay a higher tax? That's why your property tax on a $900,000 home is $5,000 as opposed to $12,000. Holy Toledo, 2.5 hours. But I'd rather spend it with you than anybody else. All right, I got one more. I said one more 5 ago, but I'm just going to do one more. I'm going to pick one of these zip codes and I'm out. 85139 in Arizona. I mean, I've been doing it for 2.5 hours. So like, what's the difference between another 15 minutes? 85139. Well, I don't want to start with that. I want to start with inventory. $91 homes on the market. Last year, 102. So you lost a little inventory there in Maricopa County. Is that where you are? Yep. Median days on market, 69. Last year was 59. So homes are taking longer to sell. Let's see. Let me do price reductions. 28%, nearly 30% of people cutting their price. That's a decent amount. That's a decent percentage. Share of delistings, only 5% of people have yanked their house off the market. Only 5%. But so, 5 out of every 100 homes has been delisted. That's not that many. Let's look at prices real quick. Down 4% year over year. Holy shnikes. That's a drop. Like Larry said, homes are going up in price except where they're not. 338 grand. Peak was about 420, 419. So yeah, lost $60,000, $80,000 on the typical house. Prices here could be doomed. I mean, your inventory doesn't really reflect that. Like you have this massive jump in inventory here. So your prices may not be doomed, but they may continue to go down until this inventory stabilizes. And then maybe they just go flat, right? We're seeing that in Florida now where inventory is falling. Now prices are kind of going flat versus down a ton, but you're still seeing a downdraft from it, down 4%. So I'm not sure if prices are doomed, moving forward, but they're definitely soft. And you have a lot of price cuts. Maybe eventually sellers in that market will decide, hey, when I list my home, I'm going to list it at a price that makes sense instead of a price way up here. Nobody wants to cut prices. A price cut sucks. Oh, wait a minute. I did the zip code though. Oh, that's Maricopa, the city. My bad. Okay, but I did the right zip code, right? All right, I did one of them, 85139. I'll do the other one next week if you want to tune in. I'll take your comment and I have one more to look at. I'm thinking waiting for another year. Does it make sense? I mean, based on what I see, it looks like prices are continuing to fall. It really comes down to inventory in your situation. I hate to say that, but like, should you wait another year? Impossible to know. Impossible to know. Because you just have to buy, if it's your primary home, which it sounds like it is, you have to buy when it makes sense for you. Because if prices fall another 2 or 3%, according to my Zillow chart, does that really matter? Probably not, right? You just have to buy something like Locked Up Larry said, make sure your debt to income ratio is not out of bounds. Make sure you can comfortably afford the home, that you've planned for worst case Armageddon, that you have a slush fund and a fund backing up the slush fund and another fund backing up that backup slush fund, right? In case the AC goes out or the roof needs repair or whatever. So don't overbuy. Be patient. Know exactly what you want to purchase. See a lot of properties. Make offers that make sense to you, and it doesn't matter if you wait a year. I hope that makes sense. That's what I tell people. I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't try to time it. Just go, well, I'm going to go out there based on what my goals are. Here's what I can afford. Here's what I want to pay. And then go out there and get it. If you can't, you either have to wait until the market changes or go to a different market. Really as simple as that. But once it makes sense for you and you want to buy a home, then do it. But if you're sitting there going, well, if I wait another year, will I save a lot of money? I don't know. I mean, another couple percentage points on the Zillow home value, is that going to change your monthly payment that much or make or break you? No, probably not. Because if you can't afford a home, waiting a year is probably not going to do anything from a standpoint of the price is changing. Now, your financial situation could change, but waiting another year probably won't do much. But the key is to be patient. I'm renting now. I'll buy with cash around $400K or less. There you go. So if you have a target amount, and by the way, just a side note, it amazes me how many people have cash to buy a home. And you're a renter, so you're not rolling equity in unless maybe you sold another house, and I saw maybe you did. I don't know. But it's amazing to me how many people are like you, Cavalier, where you've got cash to buy a home. I see it all the time in Ohio, where people just come out of the woodwork and they're like, $500,000, no problem. Their buckets of money were made during COVID, tons of money. So well done. For example, take a 30-year mortgage at 6% on a 1970 home costing $500K. After repairs, interest, and taxes and insurance, you're just over the cost of renting. Happy shopping. I mean, it depends on the market and, well, obviously the repairs that are needed. And sometimes, and obviously it depends on the individual deal too. Like I like to look off market. So I look on market too, but a lot of what I purchase is off market. So go to the area you want to buy in, Cavalier. If you have a target and you've got cash, go to the area you want to buy in. Look at the homes that maybe need some repair, or maybe you don't want to do any repairs, but if you're open to that, look at the homes that need repaired and drive by them and go, that house kind of needs some help. It's kind of weedy on the outside, not really kept, but it's on a great street. Send them a letter. Write down the address, then look up their information. You know, it's usually public information in most states. Look it up, send them a letter. Hey, I live in the area and I'm thinking about buying a house and I'm interested in yours. If you want to sell or interested in selling, give me a shout. You'd be shocked how many people reply to you. And you have cash ready. That says something. Even though to them it's the same, you get the same amount of money, right? Cash or loan, doesn't matter. They perceive that as better opportunities for them. So it's a way to get a deal. Oh, you sold your house in New Hampshire. Hey, there you go. But it's just amazing how many people are paying cash now. Locked up later. Rather pay a few hundred a month for property taxes and homeowners insurance than paying $2,300 to $2,600 in rent in my 60s. Now, everybody has their own strategy. If you're talking over your entire adult life, home ownership is better than renting. If you aren't buying the house, you can barely afford than renting. If you aren't buying the house, you can barely afford for debt and income ratio. Yeah, agreed. Well, everybody has their own thing. I'm not going to tell you that you definitely have to buy a home to be happy or to be wealthy at all, but you definitely have to buy within your debt and income ratio limits. No doubt. No doubt. That's a major mistake people are making. Again, like, I don't know if you should wait or buy. Actually, I have a guide on my website, jasonferrier.com. If you go to it and go to the bottom, there's a link for a free guide on if you should wait or buy now. And it's basically 5 questions. You could check that out. Although you seem like an experienced, I mean, you sold a home, so you know what's going on, but it's just kind of a gut check to see if you should wait or not. And it doesn't have to do with timing the market. It's more like, hey, if it makes sense for you and you want to do that, and that's part of your journey, and you found the right place that checks the boxes, do it. If not, don't do it. Timing the market's impossible. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, Cavalier. All right, I am out at 2 hours, 41 minutes. Not a record. Not a record. But I learned a lot from you guys, and you guys had some great advice in your comments, so keep that coming. I will do this again. Probably not next week. It'll be the week after. I do a weekly live on the Ohio channel because I'm in Ohio, but on the national channel every other week. And actually, another thing happening is I am doing I'm launching my data center video on the Ohio channel this weekend, and I spent a ton of time on it. So I went out and walked around data centers about 10 minutes from here, and what I found was just crazy. So check that out on the Ohio Housing Nerd channel. Anyway, I am the Ohio Housing Nerd, and I'm out. Peace.